he's the GOAT. I mean, he's, flag bearer, 5-time Olympian. He's won, I think, 7 MVPs of the Australian League. He's done it all. And when you think Australian basketball, Andrew Gaze is the guy that comes to mind.
Welcome into the Thunder Basketball Universe presented by COOP Ale Works. Man, have we got a special episode for you today. We are recording this on Thursday, October 6th. That means it's the second night of a back-to-back. The Thunder is back inside of Paycom Center for their very first preseason game here in Oklahoma City, and they're taking on none other than the Adelaide 36ers. So we've got some international friends coming to us here inside of Paycom Center, and one of them is sitting right next to me. His name is Andrew Gaze. He is a legendary Australian basketball player, also has some really awesome connections with Josh Giddey, point guard here for the Thunder. And so we are so excited to have you here. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks very much. We really appreciate the hospitality, and everyone within the organisation has been incredibly welcoming. So it's been a fun time, and we're looking forward to the game. And do we go into the game as the favourites now?
After you go in and beat Phoenix, right. You never know.
Things are looking good for the 36ers for sure. We have so many questions, but really we want to talk to you about your career in Australia first, because that's how Josh got to know you and that's how you got connected with Josh. Can you just walk us back through your career in Adelaide or in Melbourne, and then how you knew Josh's dad?
Well, I played my whole life in Australia. I had the good fortune, and it's one of the great things about basketball. It's played in more countries than any other sport in the world. So I've got to play in Europe a little bit, in Greece and in Italy, and of course spent a little bit of time here in the United States and throughout Asia. So it's a vehicle that's been incredibly good to me. But when we were playing in Melbourne, I played for a team called the Melbourne Tigers, and Warwick, his dad, we call him Wazza, as we do with all Australians. We give you nicknames. But
Josh calls you Drewy.
Drewy. So I played with his dad throughout most of my senior career. He was actually born and raised in New South Wales. That's his dad, but he came to Australia to Melbourne in 1989, and through 1989 until he retired. I think was retired around early 2000, something like that. So a good chunk of years was spent with his dad, and of course along that journey, he gets married and has kids, and I get married and had kids, and Josh is good friends with my son, but I've known Josh his entire life since he was actually born, literally since he was born, in the nappies type thing. So it's one that has been great to see his progression, and his dad and I coached Josh throughout his junior career, and so we've known him. He's just one of ours, and it's interesting. Like the other day, or yesterday, we were at the game, and a couple of the others, we caught up with Josh, and everyone was a bit taken aback about how I was talking to Josh. But I don't see Josh as the NBA guy. I see Josh as a snotty-nosed little kid that was just causing problems everywhere. But he's blossomed into an incredible player, but an even incredible bloke. He's very coachable. He's been raised the right way, and very respectful, and just you guys are really lucky to have him.
Well, Josh absolutely raves about you. He's talked so effusively just about how you've helped him with this journey, this transition to becoming a professional. And part of the reason is you glossed over your bio a little bit. I mean, 7-time MVP, 2-time champion. You won a championship with the San Antonio Spurs as well. Tell us a little bit more just about who you were as a player and having a 21-year professional career.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so rare to be able to have that type of life.
Well, yeah, obviously you've got to be really lucky to be able to have that longevity. But for me, I was born into a basketball environment. My dad was a coach. My dad, he played in 3 Olympic Games and coached in 4. Yeah. So my circumstances are a little bit different, and I had a profound advantage over a lot of my peers because of the environment and the family that I grew up in. So that was a little different. But I was not blessed with great athleticism. So for me, it was more about developing my jump shot and the shooting. And I guess when people assess me, I was lucky at 201, which is about 6'7".
Yeah.
I was kind of similar to Josh in that I was a big point guard.
Right.
And that had its advantages. And I was fortunate enough to get a whole bunch of opportunities and make the most of them. And back then, the game was vastly different. These days, athleticism is way more significant than it was back then. And because I, like Josh, I guess, because I was born into a basketball environment and basketball family, I got to understand the nuances of the game a little bit more. And although I'm not a particularly smart bloke, I think I'm regarded on a basketball court as a smart basketball player. So that helped compensate for some of my athletic deficiencies.
Well, that intelligence, I'm sure, helped Josh as well. And you talked about the parallels between your journeys. Came into the NBL at 18 years old, won Rookie of the Year. I'm sure you were able to help him just in many different regards from, growing up, but then also going into the NBL.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the thing that with Josh was that there was never any doubt about his basketball IQ right from under 12s. Everyone could see. And there is certain things in the game that you can teach, and we did our best to teach Josh and all the guys that come through our programs the skills of the game. But there is an instinct for the game and an understanding and a rapport that you develop with players, not necessarily always personality wise, but as far as where they're going to be and how they're going to get there, that is very hard to teach. And a lot of that, I think, is in the DNA. And some of his passing ability, like I'll watch him, and although his dad was a horrific shooter, like horrifically bad, and he had this cranky jump shot that it's painful to even think about how bad his jump shot was.
Send a shiver up your spine, I guess. Yeah.
But he was able to survive because of his passing ability, and he was an elite defender, and he had this toughness about him, one of those real tough guys that every team needs to have. So with Josh and trying to help him along that journey, I think it was providing him with an understanding of the things beyond just, well, this is how you shoot, this is how you pass. It's about how you got to build relationships, particularly as a point guard, and how in which you can create for others, which is, you don't see a lot of it these days. If you go to most players that are learning the game, it's all about me. It's all about how I can do all these funky dribbling and, all that other stuff. But I think Josh is an example that, you do need a little bit of it in your DNA, but if you can teach some of that passing ability and positioning, that's why, you look at his rebounding. You teach all those things, which are a little less sexy than some of the just shooting the ball and making shots. Right. Then you still have a chance to be able to get through to the elite level.
You mentioned knowing Josh when he was back in diapers. I'm just curious, when did that basketball obsession start for him, and what were some of the things that you noticed from a little kid? He
was born to it. I don't know ever a time when he wasn't around basketball, because of his dad, and his dad was an assistant coach for a while as well. So from the time, he'd be in the locker room with the fellas and with the pros and seeing how they work, and he'd always have a ball in his hands, and he was cheeky, he was a cheeky little kid that was around everywhere, and because of that, I think that was also, like it was with me, a very important part of his development and understanding what it takes to be a pro, because he was literally in the locker rooms hanging around these guys from the time he was born. So, and even then, you go to when he got a little bit older, early teens type stuff, and he'd be going along to basketball games, and he and his mates they'd be sitting in the seats and they'd be figuring out ways to sneak their way down to the corporate box so they can get a free Coke or something like that. So everything he's done in his life has been within a basketball environment. But the thing about it is, and I don't know if you've spoken about this all that much, but from the time he was about 10 to about 15, he played Australian rules football. And I don't know if you've ever seen it. Yeah. I don't know if you've ever seen that game.
Nope.
It is a unbelievably physical game.
Yeah.
Tackle, no pads or anything, but it's a tackling, kicking game. It is, and it requires incredible endurance. So combining the two, I think, was really helpful in him playing another sport to develop other skills that were transferable into basketball.
Yeah, and a physicality, because last year he did not back down from any physicality thrown his way as a rookie. When you think, here's the number 6 pick in the draft. I'm going to go after that guy. And he stood in there and he took the punches.
Yeah. Well, it was like that when he was 7 or 8.
Yeah.
I mean, he'd be out there and we'd be shooting around, and he's a little kid just, oh, come on, let's go have some shots, and you're just trying to be friendly and
Have some
occupying.
fun. Yeah.
But he's like, no, he's actually thinking he's going to beat you. I mean, come on, but that is something
He's coming
that,
at you.
Right.
Yeah.
that instinctive competitiveness and the thing that stuck out to me with Josh, and this is full credit to Kim and Wazza, his parents, is that even in those junior ranks, where he wasn't recognised until a little later on in his career. Throughout the under-12s and 14s and under-16s, he was good, but it wasn't like he was in that top echelon of player. So he was able to still maintain that desire without getting the same kudos and recognition that some of these others would get. But from our own team perspective, and as it went on, we're coaching him at a really young age, the thing that stood out to me outside of his basketball ability is his genuine desire to have everyone feel like they're part of it. So, in the under-14s and under-12s, sometimes kids can be pretty cruel, even within your own. But if it was a guy that wasn't playing too much, it was almost like he was conscious of, well, this guy, he might be feeling a little down. And he was always one of those kids that would recognize that and notice that and really try to make that person that was never going to be a player, was never going to be anything, just wanted to be a part of the team, to make them feel really welcome and become really good friends with them, to make sure that they were always all inclusive. Yeah. So that's a characteristic that no one recognized, only those that were there. But and I always used to look at Woz and Kim and say, geez, you've done an extraordinarily good job of developing the person as well as the basketball player.
Yeah, and that innate understanding is a hallmark of a great point guard. I mean, Paris, you would know better than me being a former point guard, but having that kind of calibration of where are all my teammates at, not just physically, but mentally. Does this guy need a shot? Does this guy need a touch? All of that. And you see that come across in the way that Josh plays even here today.
Yeah. And even in the game last night, which he didn't play too much, they're probably saving him for the big game against the 36ers. Never mind about the Dallas Mavericks. We've got to take care of business against the 36ers.
He is fired up to play tonight.
I mean,
we talked to him afterwards. He's really looking forward to it.
Hopefully he gets to play a bit more and enjoy the experience. And I know you've got a long 82 games and hopefully others, but this one's a little different because of what's going on. But even in that game last night, some of the passes that he does, it's one thing to have the skill sets to actually physically be able to pass it. It's another thing to recognize it and to have that vision and know where people are on the floor. And they're the intangibles that stick out the most. That it's very, very hard to teach that. It's just something that you put them in situations where they can develop those skills. But I'm a firm believer that a lot of that is just in the DNA.
Yeah. And when the Thunder drafted Josh, one of the things that Sam Presti pointed out was how Josh has this ability to make the team around him better. Like,
100%.
help his teammates be better. And thank you for that context, because that kind of helps paint a little bit more of a picture of what he meant exactly by that. Because obviously everybody knew Josh had the passing ability coming into this, but that kind of the chemistry building aspect of it, that's really important. I want to go back to the passing just for a little bit, because you mentioned some of it is teachable, some of it is not teachable. And last night he pointed out that he gives you so much credit for his ability to pass. What did you teach him? What was the teachable part?
and this is the thing, and I worked in the media as well back home, and when he came back in your summer after the season, we had a sit down with him, and to me it's absolutely clear of how that's helped. Like I said, some of it you just got to have, but what we do at our club is it's a real system-based thing. We teach the kids from a very early age really complicated offensive sets. Now, and we get criticised a lot for that, because you're taking away their natural instinct. You're doing all this other thing, which to me is a load of rubbish. But there's a lot of people that believe that that's the case. You got to let them play, read and react, and learn all this stuff. Where we're different,
right?
And in this interview that he did, and talking about his passing and stuff. And he identified the fact that the system that he was in was the catalyst for him being able to do some of those things that he does. And whether it's in the under-12s or even the NBA, the game these days is so dominated with things that happen with the ball. It's pick and roll.
Yeah.
It's how in which you can ISO, break people down, and all those individual skills that are really important, and they're fun to watch, and that's great. But what we did and what we do with our club is that system-based things, which is passing and cutting.
Right.
And you still get involved with that other stuff that you're talking about, but it's a more equal distribution of time spent with how you cut, how you set your man up, and how your position of the ball and how you pass, which is, you don't see a lot of it. But doing that, and to see him, and this is why he's got a real smart, pragmatic basketball IQ, is he acknowledges his time as he reflects back as a young man of where he was, that system was really helpful for him.
Yeah, and what he does is create advantages, right? So all of that isolation stuff that you're talking about is meant to try to get an extra step on the defense, but that skip pass that Josh makes across the court, one-handed into the corner to Trey Mann last night.
Right on the money.
That's an advantage that's being created. Trey Mann's got 5 feet of space to work with to either shoot or attack and make the next pass. So that ability that he learned from you at a very young age helps the entire offense function.
It's what Wazza and I grew up with. So that's and we knew how beneficial it was for us. So it's not rocket science. It's a system-based thing that when you put people in certain positions, it's really rigid. That doesn't have a lot of freedoms a lot of the time. And they go, what do we have to do? I want to run here. Just give me the ball and get it out of the way and I'll score for you. Well, okay. Well, at under 12s and under 14s, winning is important, but it's not. It's about developing these other traits, and it's only those kids that somehow can get that buy into it, that I think get the benefit from it.
Yeah, and Josh buying into it. You told us this before we started recording about just how invested he was in learning the game. Can you talk to us about what he was doing at a young age to learn this system and learn the game a little bit more?
Well, it's funny because when Josh was around and we'd see him at a game or something, he'd come up to me and he'd talk about a game that we played in the 90s, and I'm thinking, and he's like, what about you made this pass against the West Sydney Razorbacks in June, and I'm thinking, I can't even remember that. But what it was is from a very early age, he would want to go and watch his dad and watch the games and the things that we used to and how we used to play, and he'd get the old, maybe dad
helped him with the VHS.
Put the VHS in the machine. So whereas a lot of youngsters growing up, they've got Barney and Teletubbies and all that they're watching. He was watching games of us and absorbing it from a really, really early age. And like I said, I don't know whether it was Kim and Wazza forcing him to do it, who knows? But no, he really enjoyed that, and he loved to watch game. He was a real student of the game. And again, that's something that you either enjoy or don't enjoy. You can't force a kid to want to do that, but he really just loved the game so much that he loved watching it.
No cartoons, it was all X's and O's.
Oh no, we are serious business, absolutely. And it paid off clearly because he had a great career in the NBL and obviously started off.
Well, he was only in the NBL for one year.
Very successful year, rookie of the year that year, and obviously joined the Thunder the very next season. I want to talk to you about the NBL a little bit and just Australian basketball, because we hear from Josh all the time that Australian basketball is on the rise, the NBL is on the rise. You've seen it over decades now, obviously from when you started playing to where it is right now. Just talk to us about what you've seen in the growth of Australian basketball over the years.
Well, it hasn't been an easy journey for the sport. It's been an easy journey from participation. We have some amazing facilities where kids can come and play. So at the grassroots level, it is super strong and pretty much always has been. It's been at the top with our NBL and our WNBL, our two elite competitions. There's been some turbulent times. The so-called halcyon days were back in the 90s. Okay. And that was when the whole Michael Jordan era and that cultural stuff beyond just the game, it was that whole cultural influence that was happening with the clothes and the language and all that stuff. That the game just went from old tin sheds where you're playing with 800 to 1,500 fans to major arenas.
Right.
And that happened in the 90s. And then at the end of the 90s, start of 2000, it got to a situation where the economics of it were a real challenge. And it was super competitive. And there were a lot of franchises coming and going back then, falling away, owners saying, well, is this really me? But probably about 7 or 8 years ago, a guy named was Larry Kesselman. He was a guy that bought the whole league and invested just an enormous amount of money, rationalized the teams and got really good ownership groups in there. And since then, it's been crazy. And because of that, it's now a league where a lot of international players see it as a really good pathway because culturally, style of play, and just the environment that Australia has is really welcoming. It's reliable. It's consistent. Amazing facilities, and now to a point where, like I said, whether you go back to, and I'm trying to think of OKC play. If you go back to Terence Ferguson, he played for the Adelaide 36ers.
That's right.
And went. And was a product of that system. And a lot of players are recognising the coaching and the sports science and all the other things that go along with developing a player. It's elite in Australia. And because of that, we've had a lot of LaMelo Ball more recently been there. If you go back to last Usman Jang, he went through New Zealand as well. And Hugo Besson, who was the last pick in the draft last season. So it's really been recognised as a league that it's more reflective of, it's more of an easier transition than some of the places in Europe. So as such, it became really strong. But the NBA, as protective as they are, I wouldn't say have hurt that relationship, but they've made it more challenging now with the new NBA Ignite program that they have. So kids now coming out that go, well, I don't want to go the college route, Australia. That sounds like a good idea. But then now they've also got this Ignite program. And we've had a couple of kids. If you look at Dyson Daniel, he chose not to play in the NBA. He went that Ignite route. Correct. So it works both ways. So it's not as we don't have a monopoly on that like we did before. And the reality of it is they pay more. We pay well, but if you're purely looking for money, then it's Europe, it's Asia. There are other leagues that pay more than Australia.
There's a clear recognition, though, by NBA organizations that the style of play, the mature style of play, the competition, the adults that these players are going to have to go up against in the NBL is incredibly valuable to these young prospects. And so it seems to me, and I would love to get your perspective, the NBL has become sort of a pipeline in some sense for these elite prospects, but also a destination for players to go and have great careers and longevity there in the NBL as well.
100%. And certainly within the basketball community and the NBA community, it's well recognized. It was only a couple of months ago, LeBron's son, they're talking about, well, where are you going to go? Well, if I don't go to the college route, then the Australian, the NBL in Australia. So it's one that it's got that attention because of all those things you spoke about. It's one where I think if you're a Sam Presti or you're a general manager and you're seeing a performance in a league that has these runs on the board as opposed to someone that, someone goes to the Beijing Ducks and they average 40 a game. How transferable is that to playing in Australia? Now certainly the European competitions are really, really strong as well, and you see all the Europeans that have come over here through that is a good gauge as well. But I think it's, if you're going to invest a significant draft pick, you want to minimize the risk as much as you possibly can. And I think that we've got to a point now with the NBL that the performances in there really stack up. And to a point where most people in Australia, we all thought Usman Jang was a really good player and he's going to be an NBA player at some stage. But I think most people in Australia were really surprised at how high he actually went in the draft. So, and I say that not as a criticism of anyone's judgment, but just as a more of an example of, well, even though his performances in the league were relatively modest compared to, say, Josh and others, it was still enough to tick a box that they felt comfortable to take a really high a pick on him.
It's a recognition of the value of the NBL experience.
Correct.
And that this is a proving ground. And if you can be solid in that league as a 18-year-old, then that really
means something. A bit more sort of
exactly.
thing.
Building a very solid reputation, obviously building some cachet as well among the NBA and in the US. Before we let you go, I gotta ask you one more question. You've been around the 36ers now for a while. You got to give us a quick scouting report because, I mean, here's what we do know. They can shoot the lights out of the gym like they did in Phoenix.
It is. And they've got some really good players, which you saw with Randall, who had 35, and Robert Franks, who had 33. They clearly can shoot. Anytime you get 24 threes in a game. Daniel Johnson is a veteran, and he really got it going. I think he had 8 out of the first 10 points, and he had a couple of threes. Now, he's a 6'10 guy that you look and you go, he's not going to wow you with his athleticism or anything, but he's been around a long time, and he can really shoot the ball. But with what they Antonius Cleveland is a guy that
the OKC Blue, actually.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, he's played in our league before with a different team, and they've got these 3 imports combined with their. Mitch McCarron had 16 assists in the other game, and he's a guy that's sort of on the fringe of the Australian team. He plays for the Australian team when some of the NBA guys can't make it. Right. So he's a really high quality player as well. So you'll find that they're fun to watch. The way they play, they're fun to watch when the shots are dropping. I guess like anything, it can look a little ugly when those shots aren't dropping. And they took a lot of shots. You go, oh, geez, that's a bad shot. Oh, crikey, it went in. This is great. So it was, it was like that. So it's a different, slightly different way of playing, a little bit more structured than what you see out here, but they're a fun team, and they haven't had great success in Australia the last 5 or 6 years. So with this season's team, they're hopeful of hopefully being a little bit better and getting into the playoffs. They haven't been in the playoffs for quite some time.
I've got one last question for you. What's this trip to the United States been like for you, and specifically to Oklahoma and to just be around the Thunder organization? Well,
I've had the lucky part of this trip is I'm actually here. I'm not a part of the Adelaide 36ers organization, but what we do is these trips that we've been doing for quite some time. You look like you're too young, but if you go back,
I get that a lot.
4 or 5. You wish I
no, it's true.
4 or 5 years ago, when OKC played against Melbourne United, and you had Paul George, I think you had Russell Westbrook was still in the team, and you beat Melbourne United by a point.
Right.
So my role on this tour is not so much with the Adelaide 36 part of the organisation, but the league tries to use this to promote the basketball, but we also want to promote Australia.
Right.
And we want the United States to want to come and visit Australia and also get an understanding that Australia is a super advanced, highly recognised for its manufacturing, its exports, and all those other things, is part of the reason why we play this game.
Right.
And you'll notice on the back of the jerseys there's this little triangle with a kangaroo in it. They're the sponsors and the reason why they can come here to provide the resources to do that, because Australia is really popular. And everyone is curious to have a look at it. But like everything, there's some organisations that perhaps aren't as Australian as others. And this Australian branding that we have on there, it's about, if you see this little triangle with a kangaroo on it, you can feel confident that it's been authorised and it's a genuine Australian product. So, we use in Australia, we're using the sport to do this vehicle to promote our great country. We love Australia. We're really welcoming. It's a beautiful country to come and visit. So hopefully we'll see you guys coming down there soon. And it's a long way. You have to sacrifice a little bit. It's a long way in the plane. But yeah, it's worth the trip, and hopefully we can encourage people to come and watch the basketball if that rocks their boat. If you want to know anything else, we'll be able to cover all bases.
I mean, we could take TBU International.
Oh my gosh, I would love that.
Thunder Basketball Universe overseas.
Talk about a road pod.
Yeah, exactly. Between the way you talk about Australia and what we hear from Josh, oh man, we'd love to go.
Yeah.
That
now you won't.
Amazing.
You won't. A lot of people here who I'm surprised at how. For us, that we don't. A lot of people don't know a lot about Australia. You know, they've heard of it and they think it's got these funky animals, and you know, you got to be careful of the spiders and the snakes. Where if you want to see the deadliest spiders and snakes, come there.
No thanks.
But here's the thing: you're not going to see it by walking down the main street of Melbourne or Sydney.
I didn't see any at the Sydney Opera House.
There you go. Yeah, you're not going to see it any there, but you can have those. That type of cultural trip as well, where you can get out there and go swim with some sharks. We've got great oceans and beaches and all that stuff. So, and great products. So and look for that little triangle with the kangaroo in it, because that's the one to know that you got the real deal.
Oh man, this has been such a fun podcast. Talking from Josh as a baby to going and exploring Australia. This has been amazing.
No, good on you,
Andrew. We have really appreciated having you on the podcast.
Hey,
Thanks so much for joining us.
I really enjoyed it. Hey, good luck to the Thunder. Hey, go Thunder! You guys are really popular in Australia, mate. Let's be honest, because of Josh, but really popular, and hopefully you can grow on that what you're starting to develop this season. Shame you don't have your big fella, but it's gonna be a fun year, and We love OKC in Australia.
Oh, we love hearing that.
Yeah, and welcome here. I'm sure everybody has shown you that Oklahoma standard of kindness and generosity.
I love it. It's been fantastic.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Andrew. Really appreciate you. We're going to take a short break real quick, but don't go anywhere, because when we come back, we've got a brand new segment on the Thunder Basketball Universe podcast. You're going to want to see this. We'll be right back.
COOP Ale Works is the proud sponsor of Thunder Basketball Universe. Brewers of the fan favorites F5 IPA and 99-calorie Ice Chest IPA. You'll find those and many more COOP beers at retailers across Oklahoma. Learn more at CoopAleWorks.com.
We're bringing you a new segment this season, a segment we're calling In the Know. It's a segment where we're bringing on leaders from around the Thunder's corporate office to help bring you insight that's going to help you as Thunder fans, insights that's going to help you bring some context to what you see on the floor, around the arena, and on our social channels and on our website. And so this is our very first segment. We're bringing on Dan Mahoney, Vice President of Broadcast and Corporate Communications. You've been on the podcast before, so you're a friend of the pod at this point.
I am definitely a friend of the pod.
Yes. Yeah. Now, very big friend of the pod.
I will say that's a lot of pressure that in the know I actually have to know something. Okay. You should have given me a heads up on that so I could prepare.
So
don't worry, you know more than us.
But yeah, we wanted to get your insight on all of the various ways that Thunder fans can watch the team this season. And so maybe I'll just kind of leave it open-ended for you there, and you can take it away.
Well, the way television is consumed it changes every day, and certainly has changed over the past 10 years. When we started, as they say, a little bit of background. When we started in 2008, we established a relationship and a partnership with, at that time, Fox Sports Oklahoma. And in those days, it was basically cable and satellite, which was DirecTV and Dish Network. That's the way you watched. Over the past 10 years, everything's changed. Streaming has just changed the way we consume entertainment through, Netflix and Hulu and YouTube TV and all these different platforms and program providers, and it's really changed. And in a few years, I don't think the word streaming will even be around. It's just all TV.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's what you do. It's how you watch. But along the way, certain providers have popped up like YouTube TV, like Hulu, and people have shifted to that. Mm-hmm. And that's obviously, has created competition in the market. But it's become very difficult to know how to watch regional sports networks. And that's what now called Bally Sports Oklahoma is. It's a regional sports network. They're our partner. That's where our games are. And so what we're left with, the past few years, there was just a universe of people that couldn't watch our games. Mm-hmm. But it's just a good reminder to people that our games are and always have been on cable. And obviously in Oklahoma City, that's Cox, Channel 37. In Tulsa, that's Cox, Channel 27. But wherever you're listening, if you're in the Oklahoma City Thunder region, which is 5 states, check your program guide on your cable. cable is still, in my opinion, the easiest and best way to do it. But we know people have other options. And so DirecTV satellite, games are still on, channel 675. DirecTV Stream, it's called. It used to be Uverse. It's owned by AT&T. It's a program provider. And our games are on there, on the choice package option. But this year, Bally Sports has a new option, a new way to watch the Thunder. And that's what technically is called a direct-to-consumer model. But it's really like ESPN Plus, Disney, Netflix, Paramount, any of those. That it's an app that you download. It's the Bally Sports app, and you're able to stream the games without an authorized TV provider. It's a subscription streaming service, and you get to see the games, and you get to see the channel. You ultimately, not right now because baseball hasn't licensed them, but ultimately in Oklahoma, you'll get to see the Texas Rangers on there. During the season, you will get to see the Dallas Stars from the NHL on there, but it will have Thunder games. Again, it's a subscription service. It's $19.99 a month. It's $189 per year, but it's an option for those who don't have the ability to watch Thunder games otherwise. And it's a great option. It's not just on your phone. You can put it on your Apple TV, on your Roku, on your smart TV. It's, as I said, ultimately things won't be called streaming. That's TV. That's how it's all internet based. So if you have an internet provider, that's all you need.
Right. And then for those who maybe want to go back and watch the game later, Bally Sports Plus, that also has replays as well, right?
Yeah, there'll be an on-demand it's a licensing with the NBA, but it's 72 hours after each game. That game will be available. So if it's a West Coast game and you can't stay up, just don't check your Twitter when you wake up and watch the game in the morning. But yeah, for 72 hours, you'll be able to watch the replay of the game.
Well, and people want to go back and watch Michael Cage's best,
for sure.
the highlights of his punchlines and everything that we've got on our Bally Sports Oklahoma broadcast, right?
Yeah, luckily that's only 72 hours.
Yeah.
So that's how you can watch games during the season. A lot of options, whether you're cable or not, you want to go direct to consumer, a lot of options for you. These preseason games, however, one starts on Monday, and Dan, there are a couple of options to watch those as well, right?
Yeah, so we've been doing this for a few years. We have 6 preseason games this year, which is terrific. Love to see our team play, so that's awesome. We will stream the first 5 through the Thunder mobile app and the Thunder website. And then the final game, October 13th at San Antonio, that will be a game on Bally Sports Oklahoma, and that will be also on the Bally Sports Plus app and that service. So, yeah, we just, early on, we didn't carry every preseason game, and not all teams do. But as we, sort of went through the first few years, we really saw our fans were hungry. I mean, the off season, whether it's 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, whatever it happens to be based on a team situation, you get an itch to watch your team, and our fans want to watch our team. And so we've developed the technology and the ability to stream these games. And we're thrilled to be able to do it. And it's basically a broadcast. It's Michael, it's Chris, it's you guys. And it's good practice for you to get back into the game environment, but certainly for our fans, it's a way to watch. But yeah, through our Thunder mobile app, as well as our Thunder website, okcthunder.com, you can watch the streaming games. And then on October 13th, you'll be able to watch actually on Bally Sports Oklahoma.
And that Thunder mobile app is, of course, free of charge. As you can download that anywhere. Dan, what about on the radio? We know so many people are in their cars or want to get that experience. Obviously, we have an incredible radio play-by-play man in Matt Pinto. Where can they find our radio broadcasts?
Well, since day one, we've been partnered with our flagship station on the Thunder Radio Network, the Sports Animal in Oklahoma City, 98.1 FM in Oklahoma City. They also simulcast on their AM station, 640 AM. They also, it's interesting, on home games on WKY, which is a legendary station and signal in Oklahoma City. On home games, Elena Ornelas provides Spanish play-by-play and has for years. On road games, we simulcast Pinto's call of the game. So, Sports Animal is a terrific partner, has been since the beginning, But in addition, we have a 10-station Thunder radio network. So it's Sports Animal affiliates in Elk City and Woodward and Ardmore and Tulsa, 97.1 in Tulsa, Sports Animal. And then there's another group of stations, Enid, McAllister,
right.
as I said, Woodward, Elk City, basically every corner of the state. There's not a place you can be in Oklahoma where you can't turn your radio on at some point and find a Thunder game. And Pinto, well, you guys know, Pinto is a marvel to watch. He is a very, very experienced play-by-play voice. There's nothing like Matt Pinto calling a game. There's nothing like watching him prepare to call a game.
Oh my gosh!
There's no one more
His
prepared
notes,
in this business than Matt Pinto.
Yeah, and I think people, people say, well, is radio play-by-play dying? Is AM radio dying? And look, there's always room for good talent like Matt Pinto.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And there is a market to listen on the radio. And whether it's people driving in their cars, whether it's people that the Sports Animal does stream those games, they have an agreement with the NBA to be able to stream them within our area. So you don't need an AM radio to do it. But it's radio. I worked in radio for years, and I will never give up on radio. And I really enjoy listening to Matt, and the fact that we have radio affiliates in all parts of the state that have been with us since the beginning.
Right.
Says a lot. It says a lot about our fan base outside of Oklahoma City. In the small, there was an affiliate in Guyman at the time, way far northwest, and I was up there visiting them, and it's basically one room. I mean, that's the station,
right?
Yeah.
But that's the beauty of radio. You don't need a giant studio. You just need the signal to be able to reach people, and it's radio is still a great medium in my opinion, and nothing that. Nothing can convince me otherwise.
Yeah, the podcast revolution is an affirmation that people want to be able to listen.
Right.
It's the
and
podcasts or radio.
Exactly.
But now,
without needing your phone, just turn the dial and listen in.
Yep.
Absolutely. One thing, going back to Valley Sports Oklahoma and just the TV aspect of it, want to give you a chance to talk about Thunder Live and with John Radigan and Nancy Lieberman, something else that makes our broadcast so special, having those two as a part of the crew on game nights and being able to watch them every night. Yeah,
well, part of the programming with Valley Sports is a pregame show, a 30-minute pregame show before the game, and then halftime, obviously, and then the postgame with player reaction, coach reaction, and then analysis from people like Nancy Lieberman. And let's just take a minute on Nancy.
Yeah.
Most people kind of know her history, but Nancy is a big deal in basketball, in the history of basketball. And I wouldn't just kind of pigeonhole and say a big deal in the history of women's basketball. No. She is a big deal in the history of basketball. She's in the Hall of Fame. She's one of the very, very few who've been a coach in the NBA.
Yeah.
She was a head coach in the G League. And Nancy is, I grew up and went to high school in Richmond, Virginia at the same time she was at Old Dominion. And I've told her this. I said, you were one of our heroes. Like as a high school, I wouldn't call myself a basketball player, but I tried. We emulated Nancy Lieberman. She was at Old Dominion, which is not far from Richmond. And now to be able to work with her is pretty incredible. It's an important way to kind of get ready for the game, the pregame show, like get in the mood. Paris, you'll be doing some of that as well. And Nick, you appear on those. And the great thing about, it's no secret, the studio that they work from is in Dallas.
Yeah.
That's where Valley Sports Oklahoma's headquartered, and because it's part of the Valley Sports Southwest region. But the whole beauty of television is it's all seamless. And but we try to really make a seamless environment. It's not like, they're on the pregame show, they pitch to you guys for the game, and then they come back. It's all very, very integrated. There'll be numerous times, probably at least a dozen or more, where Nancy is up in our arena.
Right.
And our fans love to talk to her, and she loves to talk to our fans.
Does.
Oh, yeah, it's a scene up there outside Jack Daniels. And
Nancy will talk.
Yeah.
In a good way.
And she'll make you feel like you're best friends in that moment. It's incredible.
Oh, and when she talks to Cage, it's good night. It's all over. I just want to take the opportunity to as we put on our broadcast, you two are such an important part of it. And you all have been terrific at growing and expanding and learning. And, there's not a lot of teams that have a 4-person group of talent for the game, play-by-play, analysts, and sideline. That's the normal rhythm. There are some teams that don't even have sideline on some games. And we felt it was important for our fans and our viewers to get a really well-rounded look at these games. And that's why we've been able to work you two into it. And it's been very, very successful, in my opinion. It's in large part because you guys are so well prepared, so knowledgeable of the team, and you cover the team day in and day out, and that shows, and that's really important.
We appreciate that.
Well, thank you, Dan.
Yeah, thank you.
It also helps that two brains are better than one when covering the sideline.
True.
I forget something and Nick picks it up. That helps a lot.
That definitely helps.
So we've covered kind of the traditional ways that fans can watch this new option with Bally Sports Plus, the radio, Thunder Live. Dan, is there anything else that you'd like to share about just the viewing experience and the way that Thunder fans can consume our team?
Well, there's always talk about this second screen. People are watching on TV and they're on their phones and they're texting and they're tweeting and they're and we would just invite people to take advantage of our mobile app. It's got everything you need to follow the game. There will be a way within that app to stream the game if you have a TV provider or you have the Bally Sports Plus. But you get live stats, you get access to the social feeds. It's and as Nick pointed out, it's free to download, and I think that's a terrific partner to a viewer who's watching and a fan who's watching our games. The other point I did want to make, because it's a little confusing to people with League Pass. League Pass is terrific. If you're an NBA fan, you should have NBA League Pass, but everybody needs to understand in individual markets like Oklahoma City and others, NBA markets, the local team is not on League Pass. The games are blacked out. And the reason for that, and I think it's important to note the reason for it, it's to protect the local broadcast.
Right,
and we support and always have supported those games being blacked out on League Pass because we want people watching, our version of it.
Right.
Because, let's be real, part of it is we sell sponsorship, we have commercials, we have, we're a business, and those don't appear on League Pass. And that's why the league does that, does the blackout. So, but I would always encourage people to buy League Pass if you're an NBA fan, because you can watch on any given night, you can watch all 28 other teams. And it's a great way to really stay on top of the NBA.
Well, Dan, this has been so helpful. And I know our fans are soaking this up because it's going to be an exciting Thunder season. We're all looking forward to it. And just a quick recap, Bally Sports Oklahoma will be airing 81 of the Thunder's 82 games this season. The November 1st home game against the Orlando Magic will be on TNT this season. And as we mentioned, loads of ways to watch the Thunder this season. So be sure to check that out. And as always, come back to Thunder Basketball Universe. We'll keep you in the know throughout the year on everything that you need to know. For more information, go to OKCThunder.com. That's got all the information you need as well. Dan, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks so much for tuning in and listening. Be sure to like, rate, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much to our producer, Matt Bishop. And until next time, Thunder up, and catch you later.